Yes. So, thanks everyone for making time to come on here. It's Sunday morning, Sunday evening, afternoon or early morning. So, whatever is the timeline for you, you are here, and much gratitude and thanks to you for jumping on in for this particular conversation. Some of you have come in from different parts of the world. I very strongly appreciate that. So, Linka says she's from Slovenia. There's people from Pune. People from Bangalore, Mumbai, quite a lot of you from different countries and different places. So Murray is coming from Toronto. Lovely to hear that. So some of you are here for more than your first session. Thanks for coming in. So again, just reiterating for some of the people that are new here. My name is Sunil, and I am from Bangalore, which is part of southern India. And I am a young coach. In fact, for the last 2 years, until I was part of the ICF Bangalore membership, I was their young and new coaches community of practice lead. So I'm 33 years old, 2.5 years into coaching. I started coaching when I was 30. I quit my corporate career way earlier than many of the current coaches, and it was an accidental entry into coaching, but it was love at first coaching, and that has been the same from all over, and it's continued for the last 2.5 years. This is my third ICW year. The first year I'd done one session, the second I'd done 13, and this year I've done 21. So I'll be doing 21. So this is session number 18. This is the 19th one that ends today evening, and two that extend beyond the ICW. 1 hour of pro bono mentoring and 1 hour of pro bono coaching. So one of the aspects that I love about coaching is that this exact space that we're talking about today, that's about silence. And all that entails that comes from silence. So that is a little bit of an introduction. And also some of you who are here today are uh, already people who are part of the tribe of coaches that I run. It's a community of coaches. We're about 226 coaches across the world. At any point of time, 30, 40 of us are active at any point of time for aspects of learning from each other, community-based learning, sharing frustration, sharing success stories, sharing our learnings as such. So that's a community that is completely open and free for all people, as long as you've started your ACC journey or minimum ACC journey started. Uh, that's an entry point for all of us. It's a community that I started about 19 months back because I did not have a community to bank on when I was starting my coaching learning. And it took me time to get to my 500 hours. It took me around 12 months to get to my PCC and 500 hours. Another 3 more months for PCC to be complete. So in 15 months, I had my PCC, and it's come with its own adventures. I bring in, so I'm a poet first, who came from a background of uh, software engineering, and then I bring the aspects of engineering, software, and poetry into coaching. Mostly very strongly marry creativity and coaching. And I coach in different languages other than English. It's a interesting space to bring core competencies of coaching beyond the language, because very interestingly, the metaphors, the concept of metaphors and every other aspects remain the same. But maybe there is a nuance in different languages, offering different metaphors and different thought processes as well. So that's a little bit about what I do on the tribe of coaches and all that. And kick-starting what we are here today. Thank you for joining in. Just before the full-fledged aspect of what silence is, any of you who registered across the ICW, uh, what do you think was the significance of putting silence, silence, and silence thrice? So it has an interesting story behind it. So anybody who went into that question to say what is the story behind Silence, silence, and silence. Yes, Mary, go ahead.
Um, are we supposed to be guessing why it's silence three times? Because I have a theory.
Go on, you
Um,
can guess.
I'm I'm thinking that there's silence for the client, silence for the coach, and then at times silence for both of you. Or if not both of you, possibly internal after you leave when you're doing a reflection. So that's my guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. Perfect, Mary. Perfect. So that is exactly how the three silences came into place. And yeah, I think my relationship with silence prior to coaching has its own story. But when it has come to coaching, it is like that. So metaphorically, I always keep on sharing that it's coaching when I am in on the hot seat of coaching. It's like a canvas from my side. So I don't let what happens from my side of the canvas color the canvas on the client, and vice versa. So their silence also is met with my silence physically, as well as also internally. Specifically for me as a coach, that silence also has to be um, without any blemishes as such. That I should not be a parallel. There should be no parallel movie running in my head. So fantastic in terms of that point that you caught upon, and possibly for those that did not look at it with that lens. It's a point to ponder on in terms of how our silences are there. So again, is it silence that I start as a coach first, then the client sits in silence, and then also there is that order also matters. Who goes into silence first, and how long do we stay silent, and how long can we stay silent when the client is not sharing. So that's the interesting bits of silence. My first relationship with silence was possibly with this when, at least in school, we had teachers calling us and saying, you're talking too much. Please maintain silence. I don't know about the rest of the countries, but here it was met with stern looks, bulged eyes, and sometimes leading to stand up on the bench kind of a thing because I loved talking. Um, and also, possibly, I loved listening. And the person on the other side invariably was somebody who's found uh, talking more than me. And I think they had better radar sight of when the teacher was looking at them and I wasn't. And somehow I always found myself being caught talking while somebody else had been the aggressor or the one who had instigated this conversation. They went silent, and I had to get the conversation that said Sunil silence, and that's something that was my first understanding of silence. And otherwise, I've loved silence with reading a book, and that also has over a period of time while being in the coaching space enabled me to sit with that silence far more easily when the client is there. And even looking at one of those videos by this very interesting gentleman called Dandapani, if I remember right, is a Buddhist monk, and I'd seen him, and here I'm guessing he lives in Australia, and very very interesting, very sattvic vibes that he has. And he said, all of us have been taught how to talk. We've learned it from looking at our parents, our surroundings, etc., etc. But we've been told to do two things: stay silent and concentrate on the class, or concentrate on whatever. But nobody's actually taught us how to stay silent and also how to concentrate in the class or concentrate wherever. We've been only given a dictate saying it needs to be done. We need to be silent. We need to look at it. And that has also been a relationship that has been an interesting one. Because as coaches, we are told that silence is fantastic, silence is important, silence is something that is a differentiating factor in how good you are as a coach. But I haven't had any. space in any of the training spaces where we've been taught how to be silent. Uh, Anyone in your training, if you can tell us, how did you, was there a session on how to maintain silence? We're told silence is great, but how? Prashant, yes.
Uh, Not a training, but I remember when I went for 11 days Vipassana meditation, and it was really tough. Initial days was kind of not easy at all because it was silence for that 11 days completely. Not gestures, not talking, not smiling, not laughing, no mobile, nothing. We are not habitual for that. And that taught me a lot about science. That is what I can say. Thank you,
Interesting.
sir.
Interesting. Yes, Mary.
In terms of well-being, what I do is for 1 or 2 minutes when I have the kids, I have them just be silent, completely silent. They can rest just to relax because I said in our life we go through and we don't tend to have silence. Now, I never really thought too much about this, but I did attend another session where the lady had us being silent for 5 minutes where the other person was speaking. And I'm like, oh, how are we going to do this? How am I going to do this? And it was it was good because I didn't have to think of what next to say or what questions to ask. I just listened and fully. And it was a very different experience than I'm used to. So, other than that, if I didn't have that session yesterday, I really can say that I have not been taught to be silent. It's very valuable.
Fantastic. I think, yeah, that is a true aspect of silence. And even when Prashant was sharing his experience of being in the Vipassana space. So Vipassana, for those who may not know it, is a space where over a whatever number of days, it starts with maybe 24 hours, then 48 hours. There are different levels to it. And what Prashant attended was a 11 day experience where the experience is that you are not sharing anything from your side of the space to somebody else, and you have to maintain that silence. And yeah, there are multiple layers to it. This the physicality of that silence, that you're not speaking anything. There's again an aspect of that where uh, you are not possibly having stagnation of thoughts and only sitting with one thought. And yeah, I think meditation comes the closer aspect to it, where you're letting things flow and slowly get there. And there are experiences when there is no aspect of, even letting that flow also happen. It's that space of possibly coach non-existence, if I had to bring it into play as a space of saying I do not exist as an individual. There is no I element in that space. And also, maybe another experience that I have had is that sometimes the best way to understand silence is to wake up early in the morning and look at the sunrise, and to generally look at all the details that are emerging from that space. And you are so much in the aspect of flow and so much in synchronization with an activity that is happening, that you are immersed in it, you are one with it, that you don't need to be existing as anything else at that point of time. So there is silence within and there is silence outside, and also even on the outside atmosphere. So that's a practice that can come with time. And also, what Prashant and maybe Mary even mentioned is the aspect that this is a practice. It can't start today and manifest tomorrow as is. So that's a coaching practice for us as coaches to bring it up. And a lot of these interesting ones would be with our peer coaching friends. Especially, I found a space where I have an internal radar that as soon as the client's speaking rhythm shifts, I switch on the I switch on the silence rhythm. And there is also a silence of your body language, as is there is a silence in your physical language. In physically speaking. So both of the radars are switched on in making that as soon as I see from the client or observe from the client's energy that there is something coming, that there is a so the client is talking about, oh Sunil, you know what, this was happening, and then suddenly I think at that point, even at that aspect is already switched back on. For me to switch off and sit and relax at this point of time and observe the client and observe the other person there in all their complete identity, wherein I then become like a leaf in that river that is flowing. I go where it goes. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to have any say in it. And that metaphorically is what is the flip that happens in my head when I get into silence and with the client. And maybe this is my standard position when I am silent. Typically, how now Prashant is. Right? This is a very interesting silence position. And I sit, and that flows to a point where the client has completed their entire sharing. And with more silence, they are met with more slightly more things that are coming up. It is like, for the want of a better word, it is like they're vomiting everything that is coming out from their this things. It's a detox for them. And it happens in bursts and spurts. And sometimes I, over a period of multiple conversations culturally with Indians, have found that space where the client then gives me a little bit of the eye contact and looks straight at me, straight with me in the eye, and still maintains that silence. Then it's also moved to a silence between our eyes. I'm not. I'm playing chess at that point to say who blinks first. And even after that point of time, a little more, 2 more seconds of silence, and then say, what did you process in that silence? And that for me has been the most interesting and effective one. To pause just one more second or 2 more seconds. My body now feels I whatever has been heard, that I've gotten into the river has taken me somewhere, and now the river wants me to get off. I just stay for another 1 or 2 seconds in the river and then jump off. And that 2 seconds is a strong space for us as clients. And when the client is speaking, it is essentially, like I said, a lot of the first level conversations that have happened are something that has already happened in their head multiple times. They've gone through that maze in their head too many times. They know the directions. They know what is the direction that they've taken, what is the direction that has gotten them results, what has not got them results. It's in that space of I know. And then possibly a little bit more of silence is also, I think I'm acknowledging it to myself that I know that I don't know. And possibly, yeah, possibly as well. Uh, it's that space, one more silence, is that where it is going into the unknown, right? So it is going into those aspects of the three silences that we were talking about. And I think very beautifully, Prashant has shared this aspect of don't open your mouth unless you're adding more to the, you're breaking that silence is adding more. So that aspect of silence is something that's beautiful for all of us. And staying with that is something that allows us to switch back on to who we are. And is it as easy as I am saying to actually be in silence? I don't think so. Right? We've possibly I've had a argument with my best friend before getting into the session. The second thing is that maybe the client is sharing something that triggers you as an individual. right? It could be something that's very, very close to you, an experience that you've just gotten out of. The client says, I'm talking about a breakup. I'm saying about something that's not working for me. My bosses are toxic. You've been through that space or going through that space in the same time. These are triggers for us as coaches. My emotional radar also needs a little bit of silence, balance, and equilibrium, and a little bit of that. Also, if the client is sharing something that I am disresonating with us, a dissonance with me and the client. I am a vegan and the client says I love eating meat, right? Something like that. It could be that, could be something else. And that is internally switched on something in your head. And you will experience that even without that actual need for a client, even when the client is talking, you already running a story here. So most of us have been told that the silence is when the client is going into silence, there is a silence. But then there is also a silence for us, like Mary just put. There's a silence before the session, or there's some sort of a grounding prior to the session. There is a requirement to be in the session as is, and possibly that silence of this session, or there is no um, aftermath of this session going into my next session, or the activities after this session. There is a need to have nothing to hold on to again not hold on to anything in the session, and then not have anything from the session hold on to you at the end of the session as well. And those are also an aspects of three aspects of silence. Now I would like to do an interesting exercise is possibly to switch on your videos if that works for you, and for maybe the next 2 minutes. If you're not on your videos, that's absolutely fine. There's no mandate. But right from now, can you switch off and completely be silent? And in that space, observe your thoughts. And maybe after 2 or 3 minutes of staying in that silence, write down whatever you felt or express whatever you felt. And yeah, the time has begun now. you can unsilence yourself at this point of time. I think I had three people on my video screen. I have a little bit of interesting experiences, at least looking at the three. And I said it's 2 minutes, but I gave you two and a half. So extra 30 seconds. How are you feeling now? That with the silence aspect, I know maybe for Mary it's 7 a.m. in the morning, maybe easier to go in silence than anybody else. And yeah, so go on, please share. Yes, Mary. Yeah.
I have to be careful with silence because yes, it is 7 in the morning, so I don't want to fall asleep because it's too relaxing. So, but I didn't turn on my camera because I don't have my professional clothes on. I have my sleepwear, so that's why my camera is off. But it was absolutely fantastic, and it's such a wonderful start to the morning. So thank
Thank
you for
you.
that.
Mhm. So the interesting aspect of the challenge that we've now put you is this was I gave you that space, I gave you that stimuli to say, hey, now go into silence. But in a coaching session, that delta is that you cannot switch off your camera as soon as the client goes silent. And you cannot possibly also close your eyes, which I was assuming what was happening with Prashant, Jyoti, and Malvika, because at least with whatever I got from the videos that were switched on, that there was a space where initially it was shut eye, and I think to a certain extent later on, Malvika was with open eyes. So our practice of silence strongly involves switching off the stimuli. But in a coaching session, while the client is reflecting, I can't switch off my stimuli. And that's where it gets challenging. And that is an interesting aspect of how do you be mindful of that space by observing the client, and that's how you'll be able to sort of still hold space. Prashant, you switched off your mic.
Yeah, so there is interesting what I want to talk about when my first experience in the coaching was with one of the peer coach from Singapore, and it was an initial period of coaching, so a lot of mistakes were happening from my side, and as we are not habitual for maintaining those silence, the pause. Uh, she gave me the feedback saying that you are jumping into the conversation. And that was, I reflected on that and I realized that, yeah, I need to correct myself. But later on, uh, as I said, that this Vipassana meditation has helped me to get into that space where I can maintain the silence without shutting myself. And that is a space where you give the opportunity to other person to open up. That is what I feel.
Fantastic. Thanks, Prashant. I think it's, yeah, jumping is a very beautiful metaphor that you said. Um, is possibly because I've been talking about the river being a metaphor and flowing with the river with the client at that space. So, in all of my conversations, three interesting metaphor types is what I use. One is that the canvas space, whatever is happening in my side, the canvas does not go to the client's canvas. Whatever is happening with the client's canvas does not end up in mine. And whatever happens in the session, my canvas is completely wiped off and then exiting the session. So that's one of those spaces. The other is you're looking at the coaching as possibly walking with the client down the river, or walking at or sitting at that place where there's a bend in the river, and you're watching everything that is happening. You don't need to jump into the river. You don't need to react, and whatever you do ask or share or etc. does not influence what is already in that river. You cannot undo what the river is already bringing to the session, and you cannot also possibly control what the river takes out of that space. And essentially, whatever is being shared across the 60-minute format, 90-minute format, 40-minute format is the same. So those two metaphors for me really work very well. And I also have that third one that I don't exist. There is no Sunil, there is no PCC, there is no coach that exists with me when I get into the session. So these three enable me to switch off all the outside disturbances and then coach while doing so. And uh, possibly somebody you feel as a coach who has a lot of time in his or her hands while they're coaching is actually somebody who's masterfully aspected that particular aspect of silence, because in that silence, like I was saying, the initial aspect is all that is being there in my head, the maze has already been traveled, and whatever is now left is that unknown, and that's happening through those silences and pauses. And because Prashant also brought in the aspect of the pause, is there a differentiation between a pause and silence? Interesting. I have also not thought about it, but there should be something that there is a delta between pause and silence. Uh, yes, Jyoti, you raised your hand. You are muted.
I have a different question altogether.
Hmm.
We'll let people answer Prashant's question. They have to pause
Yeah.
in
So
silence.
yeah, perfect.
There's,
So if it's a different question, please put it out in the chat if that's okay. Otherwise, you can share. Yeah, I think it's okay.
I can just share it with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that first I thought I would not share it because it was something different, very different. So, because I joined late, I put on the alarm. As I spoke to you before, also because I was too anxious not to miss the session. And the alarm, what I kind of did not want to happen, happened. It didn't ring. So suddenly I woke up and it was already 20 minutes past 4 o'clock. So out of anxiety, I ran to the computer, put it on and joined. And when immediately we had to go into a silence after that, my mind was totally as to why was I late? What I must have missed out. Why did I do this? How come I didn't check on the phone very well? All those kind of things. Then I said I won't discuss this with you. Something so foolish. But then later on, I thought that what if I put this in a situation? Of course, normally it should not happen at all. But for any reason, suppose you are in a coaching session, and what if a coach is late ever? So, like, suppose today I was late in joining a session for reasons totally, whatever reasons they were. There could be any reason that I could also get late as a coach. So then, how do I make it up? Like here, I have to explain so much. If you're ever late as a coach, then how do you handle the situation?
Thank you. Uh, Beautiful. Mary, I am assuming you have a question or you have something to share. Please go ahead and share, and I'll come back to Jyoti with that.
Yes, I have twofold. In terms of the pause and the silence, I'm not certain, but I'm thinking that when there's a pause, it is essentially a short silence. So you're pausing to get something more immediate. But I think that when you do the long silence, it's for deep reflection, whether it's yourself, whether it's a client, or both. And then to address the lateness, it happens. But I think it's also, in my perspective, um, the way you address it. The way, if you just, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late, that's not good enough for me. I think if you say, okay, something occurred and I apologize, and the client is the focus, it makes a difference because I did have someone coach me and she answered a text in the coaching and told me. And then I was immediately disconnected because the text was not an emergency. I've had someone else talking and had to leave because there was a medical emergency. But right away, we are all human. So I know if there's a medical emergency, that takes precedence. So I think if it's once, you can talk to the client and be authentic, but you have to be authentic in the way that you're apologizing and saying, you know what, let this not take away. Maybe at that point, let's go into silence so that we can get back in track. And if you serve them powerfully, They'll be like, you know what? Yes, you were late, but wow, what a session. I really got something from it. If they leave and whatever has happened because of whatever you were late about affects the session, then the client feels that. There's the energies. So that's my thought on it. Not necessarily the right thought, but just one thought.
Thanks, Mary. Uh, so I guess there are no right and wrongs in having thoughts. Yeah, Aniket, what do you? Aniket, you're on mute, but I see a raised hand.
Okay, yes, yes, yes. So for me, silence has taken a different form and shape in the last couple of years. And silence to me is really thoughtlessness. So it is not for me, so much about suppressing the spoken or the speech, but transcending the thought that leads to speech. So I often find it very difficult to be silent. And when I say silent, I mean from the inside and on the outside. When I wake up in the morning, because that is a time when a lot of thoughts come into my head. And unlike what you said, you mentioned that if you wake up, the best time to practice silence is in the morning. It does not happen with me, and that's just an observation that I'm trying to share. And why I'm more what do you call drawn towards the aspect of thoughtlessness is also because the spiritual uh, learning that I'm doing right now, which is around self-inquiry, focuses on achieving self-inquiry or doing self-inquiry through that objective of being thoughtless, while even when you're living your regular life. When I'm in a coaching session, and I've just begun, when I'm in a coaching session, I often feel I need to be silent even while I'm speaking. So even when I have to ask that one powerful question, quote unquote, to the coachee, even that time I think it's important for me to be silent. Otherwise, I rush. And again, I'm just sharing these as observations, not as guidelines.
Yeah, fantastic. So, I think very interesting thoughts from all of you. So, based on whatever has been shared, uh, you know, the aspect of pause could be that I'm pausing before I'm asking a question. I'm pausing to let you finish. Uh, but silence maybe is the duration is a little longer. In terms of session, if the coach is late, possibly the that's the reality of it. How quickly can acceptance come into your own aspect of? I think whatever Mary said is in terms of the coach, sorry, the client. How does the client see it? Maybe I would like to add to that, saying how does the coach see it? Is I am late and accepting that I can't change past. I'm no longer in the past. I am with you here right now. Apology or sorry I'm late, etc., etc. That authentically coming from that space absolutely matters. The way it lands absolutely matters. And another interesting things that she said, it's if the energy of what you are sharing is at the right is fitting into the right place, it changes a lot of things. Maybe what also that led me to was what is the energy of your silence? That is absolutely beautiful to look at. In the session that you are, when the client is talking about something, you still have to maintain silence uh, while they are completing that. And when there is a space of reflection, also there is silence, right? So those are two more aspects where silence also has to run. So not just parallel track of there's no parallel cinema running in your head even while the client is answering, and there is also no parallel cinema in your head while the client is reflecting. So two interesting aspects, and both of those times, what is the energy as you as a client is exuding? So you as a coach. So that is something very very interesting from whatever came by, and I think there are no right answers, there are no wrong answers as long as the answers are valid for you as a client. And how quickly do you as a client switch back onto your silence, even if there is something that has disturbed that ripple in that particular aspect as well. So very strongly, your energy as an individual matters, and possibly the killer blow for this particular conversation is in silence. You are absolutely attentive, and I think Aniket said, I have a challenge in terms of being silent." I would challenge that thought with the aspect of the flow, right? When you are in the flow, while you're reading a book, watching a movie, driving, whatever, you're in that flow. It almost feels like, oh, this session did it go on for 45 minutes, right? Right now, if you look at the clock, we started at 4:06, and for me, it's 4:48. 42 minutes. Did it feel like 42 minutes for us? It's like the theory of relativity. Did it feel like 48 minutes? No. So we've been in that flow because our attention is on what is happening here. Our attention to the body, attention to whatever is being spoken, whatever is not being spoken. And in the silence, whatever is being spoken is also absorbed. And possibly attention is also on whatever is not being spoken. It is giving you a bird's eye view of whatever is happening with the client and whatever the client is sharing and not sharing. So with higher practice of attentiveness to whatever is happening is the easier aspect for you to practice. Because I asked that question saying, have we been told how to be silent? Is also possibly the answer to that is how are we taught to be able to pay attention? If my attention is on something, mostly it's a good movie or a good romance novel, a good mystery novel, etc., etc. I'm sitting glued to the book. I'm passing, then switching on the page to the next one and the next. But I am not getting anywhere else. There's a possibility where I have internally reading it, but I think at the end of say 1 hour I've done, or at the end of the book I'm saying, oh shit, did this actually take me 20 hours or 5 hours, 3 hours? So it's almost been thoughtless, almost been timeless, almost been, no parallel story in my head going on. It happens in real life. It is already happening that we're maintaining silence, we're maintaining pauses. We are giving our space of reflection to our own self, to somebody near us. And with attention comes ease of silence. And possibly, how do you stay attention? Is to have your radar switched on, say, whatever is now put on the chat, saying body language, energy, tonality, uh, accent, speed. Um, so all this verbal, non-verbal cues. So with presence comes silence, and with silence comes presence, attention, all the other things. So in a way, coaching is a large set of things that are happening in continuous rhythm. It's like a dancer. Coaching is that space in the dance. Sometimes they don't have to speak anything, but there are most dances where the song is a distraction. Songs are people dancing to that beat, or possibly because they are dancing, there's something else behind. So if you're in that space of the flow, your space to attention, effortlessness absolutely easily comes. And it takes practice. So that's what I'd want to say is what is the aspect of silence, silence, and silence. And with here I pause, and in this silence that continues until some of you raise your hand and share, I will stay in silence and with full attention. Yes, Mary, over to you.
I tend to be someone who is very vocal. So being silent is something that is very new. And I love it because I realize that it changes who I am. And I'm thinking in terms of a session. Silence can be different, as you said. It could feel like it's a very long time or a very short time. But what I've also noticed, just trying to learn on my coaching journey, is that I've seen where a coach ends a session earlier because the transformation has happened, the mind shift has happened. So the client gets what they need. But yet, we do, I think, have, in my opinion, have an obligation to still fulfill that time. So maybe that's a period of time where they get silence after. Or we could say, we're adding that to the next session because that was very heavy and I don't want to push. So I think silence also allows you to gauge where you are, where your client is, and know when is the right time to do certain shifts. And there is a poem called "The Value of Time." I don't know if anyone has heard it, but I'm going to paste it here, and I love it because it tells you in how subjective time can be. And I'm just going to post it there. But that's all I had to say. Thank you.
No, thank you. I will have a look at it. Oh, yeah. Because I'm going to sit here is put me at a space where I am now thinking of writing a poem with just that metaphor. But thanks for that, Mary. Anyways, um, yes, Malika.
So, Sunil, this was so wonderful. My question is, when you get into a coaching conversation as a client, I'm talking as a client, the client doesn't know what is going to be like silence or anything like that. And suddenly, when that silence happens, will they become uncomfortable? Is my question. I'm a coach and I get into silence, but this coachee or the client does not know why I'm getting into it. I know it, because I know I know what I have to do and things like that. But from a client's perspective, will that be a little overwhelming or uh, there's discomfort? And should the coach look into the eyes? What should they do when they are in silence? I've seen you with Hala and I know, but even I also thought that it's getting to be too long. I thought that when I was watching it, but of course it brought its results. So I'm curious there, from both coach and client's
Yeah.
perspective, the question.
Yes. So beautiful because you bring up something that is very interesting in multiple levels. Because so even metaphors that we spoke of yesterday, the client does not know that metaphors are, they are talking about metaphors. They've been come here, etc., right? So they don't know what coaching as a framework is. We have been fortunately exposed to that. But for them, if they've come here with the trust that the coaching session will deliver something. And maybe they can also sit and ask themselves, saying, why is the coach silent? And maybe that also puts them into that space of reflection and introspection. And most of us in our own lives may or may not have that generative white space of complete expanse, no judgment, to sit and actually talk to somebody. Right? We have possibly some experience of talking to ourselves. There's a monologue that's going on at all points of time. But sometimes I'm too afraid of that monologue because I don't know where it is going. Like here it's a safe space. I can air it out and put it out. And it also depends on the aspect of safety that can be that is being enabled in that silence. If I am feeling safe in that silence, I'm obviously going to share more. And it does not only extend to coaching. If I am a very strong believer that most of us who are embodying great coaching competencies and great coaching skills have done it before and have continued to do it before, even before it became obvious to us. That's interesting. So imagine 15 years before, right? 2010, the phone was not, we had no video calls. I had no video data of what you're talking. But yet, when you are talking and where somebody else was talking, I knew when I had to pause intuitively, instinctively. Somebody on the other side is talking about something, you're only listening. So you're putting your phone here, or sometimes on the loudspeaker, and suddenly you're looking at the speaker without, or you have no visual data, right? You have no visual data, but then you know when to pause, when not to talk when somebody is sharing. So it is not suddenly a very different coaching skill that suddenly is being put there. It is maybe refined, fine tuned, etc. in a coaching call. And and intuition and instinct and whatever that we continue to call it has existed. But in coaching, it is more conscious. It is being done with a thought process that it is that need at that point of time. And that comes through even before, even in a conversation when somebody is talking, they are feeling overwhelmed and they just want to put it out. And also, when interesting part is you asked saying in that silence, will the client feel uncomfortable? Right? We've said the session is something that is a safe space. We've never said we will only keep you comfortable. Our possible responsibility is also to ask something that the client feels uncomfortable with. But again, not say it's not something that the client feels unsafe, but possibly not everything that only the client feels comfortable with. Right? We're not being the perfect, space there. There could be a space where it could be a challenging space. It could be an uncomfortable space. The silence in their internal world is not even there. So this is a silence for them. And in that discomfort space, which Mary's mentioned in the chat, that there is growth that happens. There is a point where it breaks. And necessarily or not necessarily, you're not saying, okay, you know what, only these are valid for you to be like this, and these are not valid. And if you're feeling uncomfortable, the space that we've created so far is to say, let it go safely, or bring it up in such a way that we safely bring it up. And that's where sometimes, discovering the past of the individual is a very interesting skill to say as a coach, because we're not a therapist. We may not have been trained for something like that. It's equally interesting to say, take the client to the past if it's something that the client wants to do, and also to have the same skill set to bring them out in the same space. So that's something that is a added skill set and a responsibility that exists with us while we're doing it. And so there are again so many layers to the whole aspect of silence that we can go on for a multiple space here. And what we did today was a manufactured silence that we said, hey, now go silent. That manufactured space doesn't, that luxury, that privilege is not there when a client is having so many emotions bubble up and then sharing. And that is where the challenge is. And that is where that's a differentiating factor between a good coach, an excellent coach, and the best coach. Right? That aspect of this person has so much of time. It feels like I'm floating in I'm not looking at the clock. Right. So as a coach, when you are in that silence, you're not looking, saying, hey, what time, how many minutes is it gone? You're seeing, you're sitting there, absolutely free. Because in your head, in that 1 hour, I've given it to the client. My attention is on the client. And that does most of the magic.
Thanks, Sunil.
Fantastic. Yes. Thanks. Yes, Prashant.
Yeah, to add what Sunil has said, Malvika, is uh, as a coach, we are creating that space where the client is very comfortable. And we go into silence is giving a space to the client because the client is in the flow. So client is definitely comfortable in that space, realizing that he or she want to speak more, or that created the space where he or she realized that this is where the coach is expecting something from us. So that's the reason it is not uncomfortable space. That is what I felt from my experience. Yeah.
Perfect. It's possibly like, maybe just checking in with your kid. So like your kid is asked saying, do this, do that, etc. And then uh, you're you don't want to answer it immediately for the client. You want your kids to think, sit, discover, etc., etc. And then you're maintaining that with a clear understanding that the silence works. So that makes it interesting to see, and maybe because I think in metaphors, for me, one particular aspect as one metaphor, and I sort of run with it through, and that helps me focus also while getting into the session. Yes, Sheila, and then Mary.
Yeah. So wonderful aspects of silence here. And I just wanted to share that when we were doing the training, we were taught, and I mean, I'm still using that in my practice, that it was told to us that embrace that pause. Like we were told to listen attentively with gentle nods, or some warm expressions what the client is saying, and after the client finishes, hold a gentle kind of 4 or 5 seconds, or maybe a few seconds pause, silence. And in that space, the the client comes up with deeper reflections. So that is a wonderful pause there, and that brings to kind of richer insights from them, and they emerge naturally in the client, because they have said something, and then there is a pause, and after that they are coming up with something more deep. So this is what was taught, and I still practice that. So wanted to share with
Fantastic,
everyone.
fantastic. I think that's beautiful. I think 4 or 5 seconds of pause, warm expression, nods, a more how do I say, easier ones to sort of work with than saying, you know what, you need to maintain silence. It's an easier uh, practice that over a period of time becomes embodied right away into our thought process as a coach. Mm. Yeah, and I am assuming that some of you also carry forward the same coaching silence into your personal life. It does make a lot of big difference.
Absolutely.
It adds to interesting conversations. Yeah, good. So that's good for today. If you have further questions, sharing, please do share. Yeah, Mary, go ahead and share.
As you were speaking, what came to mind as well as I was hearing the different comments was that sometimes a client may actually not have in their life that place of silence. And
Exactly.
when they come to the session and you can provide that for them, that is their sense of peace. They may not even know it. So that is one. And it is, I think it is a place where you can also create routine silence. So maybe you know that their life is very busy. They come in and they need that 1 minute, 2 minute first before every session to wind down, or before they leave, or both, just so that they can get back to a place of, okay, here I am. And I know for me, because I tend to be a thinker, like I think a lot and my mind is very busy. So silence is good for me. But for those clients who are thinkers and think a lot quickly, it allows them to go and reflect on what they're saying. And for those who are thinking but at a slower pace, it allows them that space to take their time. So I think as long as you're not glaring at them, then they're not going to feel uncomfortable. But if again those gentle nods, as we were saying, and just like just the body language too, the mood, the way that the environment is, sets the pace for the session.
Absolutely true. It's like it's I'm there with you kind of a vibe alongside. Correct. And maybe I think you said something interesting, which possibly is the last thought before we close today's session. Is that you said you are somebody who speaks a lot. I come from the same category, and for me, it made it even more easier to go back to silence. Um, and it sounds very different in the way it is being shared. Is because I am somebody who speaks a lot and appreciates that space for me to think out loud. So for me, because I appreciate that silence, it became the easier aspect to say, you know what, the other person also wants that. Let me give that space for them, and that's how it became easier for me with somebody who's also a very strong speaker to sort of embrace that silence. And I think beautifully put, we embrace that silence. And maybe in your own head, when that silence is happening, so mentally embrace it, right? You go and mentally embrace it. It keeps you from being, there. And also, it is, yes, very interesting elements around it. So, how do we stay with the client while being silent? How does silence stay with us? So many things. But again, last sentence is silence, silence, and silence. If you want to be a part of some of these conversations, be a part of the tribe of coaches, and want access to the recording, please do write to me on the number that I've shared. As and when you are somebody with a minimum interest of starting session one of your ACC training, you are welcome to jump into the conversation with us as part of the tribe of coaches. It's also my number, so you can at any point of time write back to me. The next session that we have happens in the next 2 hours, and that's about how marrying coaching and creativity can happen. And feel free to jump into that. The same Zoom link is where you get your entry point. And after this, after that particular session is when 19 sessions that I had thought of complete have completely manifested, thanks to all the energies there. And I believe all of us have come here for a reason, and you were called and you answered. And there is also a space where there is a pro bono mentoring that happens beyond the two sessions, 1 hour. That starts from May 18th, that's today, and from say maybe tomorrow to end of May. And the pro bono coaching aspect of 1 hour of coaching with me, that starts again from May 20th, which is Tuesday, and ends on June 20th. So those two are still available. If you feel this is interesting, always write back to me. I'll share the links and other details. So that's it for today's session. Thank you for jumping in and observing what you had to observe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sunil.
Bye then. See you.
Thank you, everyone.